Thank you, Presiding Officer. I congratulate my colleague Ruth Maguire on securing this debate and on her very powerful opening speech. And I know she's sitting right behind me. Presiding Officer, we know that the human papillomavirus HPV vaccine it helps protect people from HPV-related cancers, including cervical cancer. And in the first study of its kind funded by Cancer Research UK, rates of cervical cancer in women in their 20s who were offered the bivalent Cervax-Rix HPV vaccine at age 12 to 13 in England were 87% lower than those who did not receive the vaccine. This is why it's so essential to vaccinate all those who are eligible so that we can make sure we can improve uptake and they can receive their vaccine. The HPV immunisation statistics for Scotland for the school year 2021 to 2022 show that HPV vaccine coverage has increased in 2021 to 2022 compared with the previous year. But the numbers are not equivalent to pre-pandemic levels in all areas, and there is still significant regional and local variation. Coverage of the first dose of HPV vaccine for S1 pupils increased in 2021-22, with overall coverage rates of 73.5% compared to 52.1% in 2020-2021. So by the end of S2, 86.4% of females had received their first dose. So while these statistics are welcome, I would ask the Minister to ensure that the Scottish Government is doing all it can to enable HPV vaccine take-up. Presiding Officer, I want to touch on screening also. We know that screening is key to both preventing cancers developing more widely as well as detecting cancers at an early stage when treatment is more likely to be successful. Cervical screening aims to identify whether a person is at a higher risk of developing cervical cell changes or cervical cancer, enabling people to access treatment more quickly. And self-sampling as part of the screening for HPV is one of the areas that I've been pursuing. I know the Scottish Government is pursuing this also. In the last session of Parliament, I was made aware that 6,000 women had defaulted on their invitation to attend their screening smear test in Dumfries and Galloway. 6,000 women were being missed on their smear test screening. So I met with Doctors William Forson and Heather Curry, who along with their team were attempting to improve screening numbers by introducing a self-sampling approach that they wanted to test the effectiveness in addressing the women who were failing to accept and attend their invite to screening. This has now been picked up by the Government, I'm pleased to hear, and the benefits of self-sampling mean that home tests away from clinics and GP practice, offering people a choice of place, Presiding Officer, no interruption to work, no travel to appointment needed, or other barriers to take up of cervical screening. And we've heard already that some women do find intimate examination of having a smear test very difficult, painful, distressing and embarrassing. So self-sampling for HPV is one way to help increase screening uptake, especially for women in remote island and rural areas like my South Scotland region. I was one of the defaulters contacted by NHS Dumfries and Galloway, and I did have the opportunity to take part in the self-test trial. So I'd be grateful if the Minister could provide an update on the status of home sampling and whether there are any findings about its success as we move forward. Presiding Officer, during lockdown I attended Joe's Cervical Cancer online meeting with women who were part of the Wigtonshire Women in Charity group, and the presentation was excellent. The Joe's Trust representatives were absolutely fantastic, and they basically supported continuing to engage and support women to take up their screening. And I also encourage women to do the same. And again, I thank Ruth Maguire for securing this debate, and I look forward to the Minister's response.